Good morning, everybody. Good Sunday morning. I'm here to give you the best update that I've been able to find because there really isn't any. Um, so let's just go from the very beginning. On Wednesday, the first thing that had happened was that Liz from Luna Shark had put out a post on Facebook that John Paul Miller had been arrested, and that he was arrested with but one federal charge. And she had said that FBI and the local police were at his home. There was no sign of that, not that we were able to find, but there was really no reason not to believe her. And almost immediately, as that post went out and got a lot of attention, it was gone and it was taken down. Now, that's happened to me in the past 2 weeks, where I had mentioned something and it wasn't supposed to be mentioned or whatever. And that's why I gave you this morning in a short. If you haven't seen it, I could play it for you as a reminder of 2 weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago exactly today, when John Paul Miller, somebody had got a recording of him at the church saying to his 12-person congregation, please pray and fast for us because we're going through a life and death situation and that we have to make a life and death decision. And so it sounded very urgent, sounded very important. He sounded scared. And I said alleged. And in case somebody out there doesn't know what the word alleged means, it means unconfirmed. This is information that has not yet been confirmed. Then the following day on TikTok, somebody had told me that So-Called Mess was doing a live and that they were talking about this John Paul Miller being arrested or actually turning himself in. And so I went in and I just sat in the audience listening to everybody talk. Didn't say anything. And in that audience came in Micah's Ducks, which we all know and love is Sam Rickman. Well, we have no reason not to believe Sam. And so Sam elaborated not only what did John Paul Miller turn himself in, but it was hours ago, meaning on that day, Wednesday. Or it's actually, forgive me, all of this happened on the same day. Pardon. The Liz thing happened Wednesday morning, and then later in the afternoon, Sam was saying this, or Micah's Ducks was saying this in the chat of a live of So-Called Mess, and said that, John Paul Miller had turned himself in hours before at his attorney's office. And he also added that Trisha Ross had wrote goodbye letters to her family the week before. Now, knowing what TikTok is like and people like to make accounts and, multiple accounts and whatever, you never know what to trust on TikTok. I actually contacted Sam Rickman directly by text. I asked, if that was him that put that out there. He said yes. And then I said, is this true? He says, well, as far as I know, the source that he got his information from was very reliable, but he was looking to get a confirmation on it anyway. And I said, okay. And as the day progressed, it was, you had a group of people that believed it and you had a group of people that didn't believe it. Now, mind you, John Paul Miller is yet to be seen by anybody since. We got one story of him driving his father's car, and you could barely see it's him. It makes no sense why he would even be driving his father's car when Susie owns a nice car. John Paul has a nice vehicle, and his father has a crap-ass car. Now, I'm not saying that it's not possible, but you can't really tell whether it's him or not. Could be his son. So is that considered a sighting? No. Then you got people who are just absolutely adamant that he did not turn himself in. This did not happen. And all because they can't find any information on the web. No matter how many times you explain or show them in text, in writing, that the FBI, this is not the same kind of entity. The FBI does not have to give the public any information, and you're not going to get on the FBI website and find that kind of information. This is not a county jail. These are the feds. Now, I'm not saying that he did this or not. This is what I'm going to tell you. This is what I'm going to tell you that I think is going on. Although it's yet to be confirmed one way or another. And even though John Paul has not been seen, he's notorious for playing games, and so are his people. I don't know why they would do this now, except for the fact that nobody's talking about them, and maybe they got tired of, not being talked about. Maybe they liked it when we talked about them and brought them up. And so, if in fact this rumor, if it was a rumor, was started by John Paul Miller and his camp, well, then I pray in the name of Yeshua that he gets what he wished for. I pray that it actually happens now and embarrasses the crap out of him. And I pray it's public, because you're messing with people. And you're not even messing with people. You're messing with DV victims who are looking for justice, not just for Micah and Chris, but for themselves. And only psychotic narcissists do things like that. Okay? Now, if you're just somebody who's in his camp and you started this rumor because you're a jerk, well, then I hope that you get yours too. Okay? Because you deserve it. Because you hurt a lot of people by doing stuff like that. And so I pray that somehow God gives you what you've given out. And that way, maybe you'll learn that Jesus Christ is Lord and not the false idol that you worship. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is true. We're wondering if we're going to even get a sighting of him today. Who knows? He may keep playing this choke and this trick, and not show up at church and get people talking. Oh, where's John Paul? Where's John Paul? Excuse me, I'm taking a sip of my coffee. And the best thing I could say is we not give any attention to this at all until it's absolutely confirmed. And the best way to do that is just not pay attention. Just wait. It's a global case. It's not even just a national. This case, Micah Miller, went global. Remember in the very beginning when there was people reporting on it, you had people reporting on it from Australia, from Europe. It was all over the place. So Canada. So it's not as if, and I know the feds know better, that they could go very long without telling the public what's going on. I don't see his arrest or him being taken into custody, however it be voluntary or involuntary, going without being seen for very long. Okay? Now, again, I'm not saying it didn't happen. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But the longer time goes on, and the more that there really isn't a confirmation, the more people get antsy and impatient, and they start coming up with different, theories, that this was all made up, that it was a rumor, it never happened, he's playing with people, he's messing with them, they came up with this story to see who they could rile up, or whatever the stupid, immature reason is. And again, if that's the case, I pray that it backfires on him. I pray that he doesn't see Christmas at all free. I pray that he and whoever goes down with him spends Christmas in prison, in custody, and they get exactly what they deserve. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray that. Now, again, if it is true, and the people who stood by the story have been attacked for no reason, I hope that there's going to be apologies. I'll give you an example. Somebody that had a 1 week old account, as if we won't be able to figure that out, came into my chat on one of the videos that I had done on Wednesday and said, "You're ready to apologize? You're ready to backtrack?" I didn't even answer them. I deleted them. Because one, they're a week old, so it's obvious that they made that account just so to go on my chat and make that comment. To whom am I apologizing to? I have no reason not to believe Sam Rickman. It's not in his character to make stuff up. And I think he's smart enough to know when there's a good source saying something and there's a bad source saying something. I still trust his judgment. Now I can't speak for Liz from, the Lunar Shark. I don't know that show. I don't know that podcast. I think I've heard maybe one or two snippets from that podcast, so I can't make a judgment on any of that. I haven't heard any bad things about her, except for that she's had a lot to say about other content creators. I didn't know that until over the weekend. But I didn't hear or report my information late Wednesday on what she had to say or didn't say. I reported it based on what Sam Rickman said. And being that he lives in Myrtle Beach, being that he's been victimized by John Paul himself, if you remember, he was one of the people that was sued, countersued and won. Sam is a Christian. Sam was a friend of Micah's. And I'm not sure if you remember me mentioning this, but if not for Sam, none of us would have ever known this story in the first place. If I'm not mistaken, he's the one who put out the video of John Paul giving the announcement, which started this whole thing in the beginning. So why would this man lie? Now, was he misinformed? That's possible. That's very possible. Now, some people had said, well, Horry County, I talked to this guy and that guy and whoever from Horry County, and they said they don't know anything. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think the feds would tell Horry County anything. If you remember back when the Skinner case had reopened earlier this year, the deputy coroner was doing her, if that's what you want to call it, interviews, and she made a comment saying that she wanted the feds to come and do these interviews with her, to join her. Do you remember the feds being there? No, because the feds knew she was corrupt. The feds know Horry County are corrupt. The feds know there's a problem going on within Horry County and Myrtle Beach and Robeson County and all those police departments. So why would they work parallel with any of them? If I was the FBI, I wouldn't. I wouldn't ruin my reputation to be around a bunch of unprofessional law enforcement officers. Why would I waste my time? So I don't see that happening. Again, the information, it's not as if it was given directly to me, as if he texted me and said, guess what I heard? No, that's not what happened. This guy went public. He went into a live chat and gave this information out and said, including John Paul Miller turning himself in, that Trisha Ross wrote all these goodbye letters to her family last week. Why would she do that? What does Trisha have to do with this? So again, nothing's been confirmed either way, but a lot of people are speculating that John Paul Miller is behind it, causing trouble. And now we just have to sit back and see if he makes a cameo this morning at the church. And if he goes out of his way not to show up just to keep this rumor going, and as I said, he deserves to have a public and humiliating arrest, a nice, clean perp walk in front of everybody for everyone to see. And it be splashed all over national magazines and papers if he is truly behind this. I did have a great Thanksgiving, Ipsy. So I don't remember. I don't know if I said anything to you guys about this after Thanksgiving. I'm not really sure. It's been kind of a blur since Wednesday. Um, I did do, as I had said on Wednesday, the cutting up of the turkey. So I cut the breast meat off of it. I cut the legs and the thighs off and cooked everything separate. So I put the dark meat in one roaster pan and the white meat in another roaster pan. And I cooked the dark meat obviously longer until it came to a degree, internal degree, between 185 and 200. And the white meat, 155, which that was about 20 minutes. After braising them, okay, I braised the meat first and then put it in the oven. And I will never, ever, ever eat turkey any differently than that again. I will forever and ever make my Thanksgiving turkey that way because it was absolutely delicious. It was just the best way. It's the first time in my life that white meat was not dry, and I don't think anybody can help. If you could be a good cook or not, I don't think you can help if you want your dark meat to be fully cooked. Unfortunately, the white meat has to be dried out a little bit. Even if you're injecting it, you know, you just can't help it. But when you do it this way, it is the best. So I will absolutely do it like that from now on. Let me see somebody. Okay, so let's see. Ipsy writes, I think he is back to his old ways, back to antagonizing. He could only stay on the Susie leash for so long, and now she will get to see the real monster she married. Yeah, yeah, and that's why I'm saying, and the only reason why I thought that was because of the person who came into the chat and was like, "You ready to apologize now?" As if you're looking to humiliate me. And what's funny is, I'll tell you guys now because it doesn't really matter. Before this even happened, before he even made that announcement at the church 2 weeks ago, I had a dream that he told me that he had this look on his face, like a very arrogant, nasty look, as if he beat us all, you know. And I don't know what he thinks he's beating us at. We're not the ones who accused him of anything. We just repeated what he's been accused of by people who know him, by people who've been around him, who people have been in relationships with him, or went to his father's school. We're just repeating it. It's not like I have a personal relationship with this guy. We're just repeating what Micah put on her affidavit. We're just repeating what Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2 said. We're just repeating what people said out of his church that left like a stampede after hearing about how she passed away. He did that. This is his doing, not us. We're just reporting it. But he sees the protesters, which is their constitutional right for the 9 millionth time, as enemies. But see, that's typical cult leaders and cult followers and people who don't have real relationship with God, don't know the Bible, are doing it for the wrong reasons, always look at other, especially if they're narcissistic and full of themselves. They always look at people that come up against them or challenge them as demons. Everybody that goes up against them or questions them is a demon. That's their answer to everything. So after this person had come into the chat and said that, I thought, you know what? This jerk off is probably playing with people, just as Ipsy said. So he can sit back and he can laugh, as Just Robin is saying here. But guess who's going to get the last laugh? All of us. Because I believe that this would be the last ditch effort. You're playing with the FBI. You're playing with your federal investigation. You're playing. You think it's a big joke. Well, I pray in the name of Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, that it bites you in the ass. I really do. And now I hope that you and yours publicly are arrested and humiliated, and you spend Christmas and New Year's Eve and God only knows how long in custody. And I ain't talking about no county jail. I'm talking about federal prison. That's what I'm hoping for. Now, what do you mean, Ipsy? Everything is documented in public record. I don't. Everything in what regard? I was awake at 2 a.m. this morning praying for all these evildoers to go down and justice to come for Mike and Chris. And I agree with you, Sharon. I'm in agreement. I think a lot of us are in agreement. Yeah, he definitely has a child mentality. And yeah, I believe that if this is truly a rumor that he created, this is going to backfire on him. And we will be the last ones laughing. Excuse me, I just hit the mic. And so consider this show a preemptive strike. That maybe we figured you out. Now again, nothing's been confirmed. Okay? Nothing's been confirmed. But let's just say that it's true, it's a rumor. And he's playing with people. And maybe he just, got bored and wanted to be talked about again. So this was his way of doing it. I'm not apologizing to anybody. I'm not apologizing because the person who said it is much more 10,000 times more believable and reliable than John Paul Miller could ever dream to be. And even if this would be a mistake, Sam to me is still somebody that I would trust his judgment before John Paul Miller ever. Most of the information the podcast just put out there is public information, right? So what I think happened is a police officer did show up at his house on Wednesday. There was a cop car outside. And it was because I think it was one of the protesters. I can't remember her name. Melissa Kaysen, I think it was. There's something going on with a sign. I don't know the full story, so I don't want to say it and say it the wrong way of what's going on. I really don't know what's happening. But whatever it is, it caused her to go to the police department that morning to file a report against him, file charges against John Paul. And so it just seems like the police department went to his house to just kind of question him, let him know what was going on. Charges were filed. Now, I don't know if they went there and they couldn't find him and they were looking for him to question him. And maybe that's what the rumor is, that he went MIA so that he couldn't be found. I don't know. None of us know. We have no idea. All I know is on Thanksgiving, Susie was seen leaving the house with somebody that was not John Paul, getting into the passenger seat. So it was very odd that she wasn't with him on Thanksgiving. And as I said, nobody has seen him. There's been no sighting. So I don't know if he's playing with us. I don't know if he's in custody. I don't know. None of us really know. Is TR saying goodbye before going into the Better Call Saul witness protection program? You know what? They need Saul. I don't know. I don't know. I'd love to get a hold of one of those letters and see what they say. Um but again, like I said, he hasn't been seen, confirmed that it's him, not his son or somebody playing him or playing tricks. So he really has not been confirmed to have been seen. We're talking about since Wednesday. So, um, what's going on with the shop? You worry about him retaliating against the businesses next to the church who helped the protesters. Okay, so in what way? In a violent way? Just Robin? Is that what you're concerned about? I think that they're sick of him, like most of Myrtle Beach. I think there's a lot of people in that area that just are like, come on already. I mean, and the FBI, if you're listening, please listen to the next sentences I say. People like me and the other people who've worked very hard on the Mike Miller case, McLovin, uh, Kristen, Leslie, um, Veronica Jokestar, uh, Danielle. These are people who, without the resources that you have, without the authority that you have, were able to figure out that this girl, without a shadow of a doubt, that this girl, Micah, did not unalive herself. Okay, in a courtroom, we would have won. So if we were able to come to that conclusion, then it's obvious that you've come to that conclusion. And why you're taking so long to take him and whomever in custody is really at this point beyond me. So it would be nice if before the end of this year, 2025, that if he is not in custody or if you've now forced him to turn himself in, that you do so in the next month. It would be nice. It'd be nice if we could nip this in the bud and get to the next phase of getting him into court and convicting him. Let's just get it over with. Let's just go. There's no way you haven't gotten any answers yet on all that has been brought forward in the past year and a half. I don't believe it. You had access to her car, you had access to her watch, you had access to her phone, and you had access to all the witnesses that you've questioned. What more do you need? Anyway. Uh so what did he do? Okay. I guess you're talking about the store owner. He has sent her emails using someone else's email address. So he up to his old crap again, same old crap. But so far, the police have been all over him. So he's harassing this woman. Is that what you're saying, the store owner? You know, it's very easy for law enforcement to find out what IP address that email came from. You know, if they really want to know. I know that the church people have been parking behind the church and blocking access for business owners. These people, they are so not part of the church. Let's just refer to them as the cult. From this point on, let's just call them the cult because that's what they are. And they worship John Paul Miller. That's who their idol is. They're harassing them with the music. Why does it suck? Does the music suck so bad that it's giving them a headache or something? Like or are they making it super loud? Maybe it's both suck and loud, right? Who knows? I mean, I've heard his preaching. It's nothing It's definitely not life changing. Let's put it that way. You know, I'm sure there's not been people out there that went, "Oh, that's changed my life and changed my view, and I'm a better person for going to Solid Rock." Outside, lol. Outside speaker, are you kidding me? And the police don't show up and see this outside speaker and find this to be a form of harassment? And now you know, and I got to tell you, now you know why the feds wouldn't work alongside them. Because any other place, the police would have never allowed this to go on. So obviously, once again, they're helping him out. Once again, they all need to go down. And I get it. I'm simplifying it. The case is probably huge, and there's a lot of people involved, and so, the FBI is probably listening going, "You have no idea what we're dealing with here." And you're right, I don't. I really don't. The music is super loud. Thank you, Just Robin. There is a cult member who swerves at protesters every single time she drives by. See, and I don't understand, is that getting on video? Is anybody getting that on video? Because that cult member should be arrested for that. Because to me, that's like, if it's not attempting to, unalive somebody, then it's at least battery. You're scaring them to think that you're going to hurt them. They have seen it and told him that if he kept it up, he would be issued a citation. Well, whoop-de-doo. Johnette has it recorded good. Melissa got it last Sunday. Okay. Feather Lady? Who's that? Yeah, exactly. Right. They're allowed to do that, but the girls aren't allowed to use bullhorn. Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. My late brother-in-law, when he was dating my sister, he had on his car, this is way back in the 80s, by the way. He had on his car like a loudspeaker, so when he would be sitting in the driveway, he'd be like, "Carla, I'm here. Let's go out to," and he'd be calling her from the driveway. And it would be funny if somebody had that on one of their cars and they could just start, saying stuff to John Paul Miller from the protest. And nobody would know because it'd be attached to the car. Anybody got one? Go to the protest. Did she? I didn't know that this happened at the other church. I did not. Yeah, I did not know that. Yeah, right. Yeah, he probably could wallpaper his living room with the citations he's got, so he couldn't care less. It really doesn't matter. The citations, he couldn't care less about that. We need a perp walk. We need him in cuffs and his cohorts in cuffs, and we needed to just go down and him be humiliated and embarrassed, especially now after this. If it be untrue, they deserve it more now than ever, because now they're kind of, giving the middle finger to the feds and the federal investigation, as well as the people they victimized and all the people fighting for their justice. And how long do you have to tolerate that? And now they're, as you guys are explaining, harassing the businesses around them and the business owners around them with their horrible, wretched music and singing. I've heard Susie sing. It could make a wallpaper come off the wall. It's like a chickens sound better. It was recorded then too. Don't know why someone has not filed against her. I don't know why nobody has filed any charges against her either. Do we have to wait until somebody gets hit? You know what I mean? And why do we have to wait until something like that happens? But anyway, all right, so this is where we are. I think the name of her channel, if I'm not mistaken, is TCB Myrtle Beach on YouTube. If I'm mistaken, please correct me here. Uh Really, there was a little girl who stuck her tongue out at the protesters. Well, cult members grow cult members, you know. So, it's TCB. Okay, TCB Myrtle Beach. So I would watch that this morning and see if Killer Miller shows up and his the rest of his cult. And if he's not there, then there is this possibility that he's playing games with everybody. And so he's going to have to spend the rest of his life in his house. You like that? Um, so yeah, the Killer Millers. So as I said, I pray that, this backfires on them and they go, we wish we never even said this. We wish we never started this rumor because we're going to just have November 1st, 2024 happen all over again. But this time, people leave in cuffs. And the news is there and the cameras are rolling and we've got all kinds of, uh, internet influencers there and neighbors and whatnot going live and showing it happen and humiliate the crap out of them. All of them, including Trisha. All of them. Every single one that's involved. And so let's just see what happens today at the protest and take it from there. If anything new happens, I will let you guys know. You know I will. I always keep my word. But that's where it stands right now. That is the latest. There really has not been any sighting of him since Wednesday. There's really been no confirmation of yay or nay on whether this happened on Wednesday or not. And so we're now just going to have to see if we actually see him with our own two eyes or not. But as I said, Thanksgiving, Susie was alone. She was not with him. So I don't know if that says anything or not. Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what happens. And I don't know if that's his way of getting people to start talking about him again or what, but the more he pushes, the more pushback he is going to get. These protesters are not backing down. It's more than protesters, Ipsy. It's all of us are not backing down. All of us. It's never going to stop. All it does is fuel the fire in talking crap about him. And so if he likes to be talked bad about, well, okay, we can do that. I'm very good at that, actually. I've become a pro at talking bad about Killer Miller. So, anyway, guys, let's watch the protest, see what happens. And if anything new comes about, I will be back on behind this mic, updating you and letting you know what's happening. If you hear anything, you can always put it in the chat. And let me know what you hear or see. Also, in the last video, please pay attention to Dr. Turley, and we know, because there's a lot going on in our world today, which is very important. It's vital. And it also is indirectly important to what we're waiting for here, this justice that we are waiting for and fighting for. So, keep your eyes peeled on all of that, okay? No justice, no peace. Anyway, stay safe, stay in prayer. Psalm 91, Lord's Prayer, in the name of Yeshua. And I will see you soon. Until then, please stay safe and God bless.